Hey, everybody. Welcome to Sunday morning at the sanctuary. I'm Pastor Mike Robertson, and I'm happy you and honored that you decided to spend some of your time here with us this morning. It's a beautiful day outside. We've had some great rains this week. It's a good time. We're heading into probably the best time of the year in Austin, I think. September and October are usually the best months to be here. So I hope you'll have an opportunity to get out and enjoy the beautiful city that we live in. Don't stay cooped up all the time. You don't have to go out and be around people. You can just go out and drive around and go for a nice ride and maybe sit on a park bench or something like that. There's plenty of opportunities for you to not feel cooped up all the time. There's still plenty of things you can feel free to go and do and not have that feeling of being in prison all the time. But I don't have anything to announce to you except to remind you about our Wednesday night Zoom chat. And I do have an idea, though. I have an idea for something I want to try, but I think I'm going to save it until next Sunday, and I'm going to share it with you during our time together next Sunday morning. So come back and find out what that is, because it will require your participation. Excuse me. All right, let's get into it, shall we? You may remember 20 years ago, wow, I can't believe it's been 20 years, but 20 years ago, a Tom Hanks movie came out. It was called Castaway. You've probably seen it. It's a good movie. Tom Hanks plays a guy who is an executive for FedEx, and he's flying on a FedEx cargo plane that gets into trouble, gets into a terrible storm. The plane crashes into the ocean. Everyone else is killed but him. And he washes up on a deserted island where he must try to make his way and maintain his sanity and continue living until he can be rescued. This movie was filmed in a very unusual way. Tom Hanks first shot all the scenes of him back on the mainland, working for Federal Express, his relationship with his fiancée, who was played by Helen Hunt. And they filmed all those first, and then the whole movie shut down for a year. Now, that really doesn't happen. It's happened a couple of times recently during quarantine, but it used to not happen at all. It was expensive to do that. And you never knew who was going to be available in a year. But the movie shut down for a year so that Tom Hanks could lose 55 pounds so that he could properly play this guy who'd been marooned on a desert island for many, many months. And he could be convincing in it. And he was. If you've seen it, you know that he was. So the star of the movie is, of course, Tom Hanks. He's on screen all by himself for most of the film. On the posters, on the credits, it says Helen Hunt, co-star, and she gets slightly smaller letters. Her part is much smaller, though. But you know what? The real co-star of the movie is this guy. Remember? It's a volleyball that washes up on shore of the island. Tom Hanks, using his own handprint, makes a face on this volleyball. And because the volleyball is made by the Wilson Sporting Goods Company, he names it Wilson. And Wilson becomes so much a part of his life. He talks to Wilson. He confides in Wilson. And after months and months, he begins listening to Wilson and answering questions or asking questions of Wilson. And he comes so close to him that when he tries to leave the island and he takes Wilson with him and he's lost, the volleyball falls off the raft and is lost, he's as disconsolate as if a parent had died. He misses this thing so much. Why? Because this is the only friend he was able to have on that desert island. The story of Wilson is a great indicator to me how great our need for community is wired into us. Tom Hanks had to make a friend where there was none. He had to have somebody to commiserate with. He had to have what we want to talk about today. He desperately needed a community. You know, if you go back and read your Bible from the very beginning, you see God beginning to create the universe. God speaks a word, and all of a sudden there is light where there was no light before. Just imagine what that would be. And then God separates the heaven from the earth. He makes dry land and he makes oceans. And then he causes things to grow on the land. And then he begins to make creatures of infinite variety to populate the land, the sea, and the air. And after everything God does, he says, that is good. But then there comes one time when God says, this is not good. And that is when he realizes, after he's made the first human being, and he's observed Adam for a while, God says, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a companion. I've always wondered why God didn't make a pair of human beings to start with. Did he have a different plan originally and he thought it would work out all right? Or I don't know. Everything else he made, all those other creatures he made male and female. But finally, he looks at Adam, and it doesn't take very long before he says, he's alone, and it's not good. I'll make him a companion. That's how far back our need for community goes. It's not something recent. It goes back to the very first person. And if you continue to read throughout your Bible, you'll see that God chose groups of people, not just a guy. When he chose Abraham, when he went to Abraham, he didn't say, from now on, you're my chosen guy. No, he said, your people will be my people. All your descendants are going to be my special people. In the New Testament, Jesus doesn't hire an assistant and say, follow me around and take notes and keep track of my calendar and all my appointments. Jesus doesn't hire an assistant. He gathers a group, a community. We all need to be part of a community. A couple of years ago, I was in Israel. I've been to Israel twice. Amazing, amazing place. I hope that we will soon get a chance to visit places like Israel again. But when we were in Israel, we went to the ancient city of Jericho. Jericho is one of the oldest cities on earth. And our guide was showing us around the ruins where excavation goes on constantly. But he showed us this big, deep pit, about 40 feet deep. And at the bottom of this pit was this circular stone structure. And it's about 28 feet tall. And we were looking down on it, so you can imagine how it had been covered up over time by 40 feet of debris. But he told us that this structure is 10,000 years old. Now see, being in America, we can't even conceive of something 10,000 years old. That's 40 times as old as the United States. I can't wrap my mind around that. But he told us that 10,000 years ago, this structure was built because that was when people were just beginning to figure out, you know what? We should stick together. There's safety in numbers. This was where that started. When people first built a shelter, not for one guy, but for a group of people to be protected against all the things that could harm them in the outside world. Folks, the church is not something that God invented because all his other plans failed. Instead, the church was the culmination of all God's plans for his children, for his creation. Church, when done just the way that God intends, gives us just a taste of the perfect community we will experience someday in paradise. Now, I know what you're thinking. And it may be something like preview of heaven? No, I've been in some churches that were a preview of the other place instead, and I can understand that. But he intends for this church on earth to be a little bit of a preview of what the community of heaven, the children of God, is going to be like. By studying two simple phrases that appear time after time in the New Testament, we can learn of the requirements and the beauty of a true Christian community. And the phrases are each other and one another. They both speak to relationships, and they recur over and over and over again in the New Testament. What are we told to do? Well, we're told to love each other. Jesus said this is job one. This is the most important commandment, is to love one another. We're told we should honor each other. We're told we should accept each other. We're commanded to serve one another and to encourage one another. These two phrases, or one of these two phrases, occurs in at least 43 verses in the New Testament. It's not true in the Old Testament. The concern in the Old Testament is not usually for other people, it's for you, the individual. But starting with Jesus, he said the important thing is how we treat each other. We need to love and encourage and honor and accept. And I didn't even read all of these. We're also told to live in harmony with one another. We're told to stop passing judgment on one another. You hear that? Stop passing judgment on one another. We're told to agree with each other, to be at peace with each other. Oi, how far off are we on those things? Instead, we say, no, it's about me. It's my rights. We forget that having rights without responsibility is chaotic. If I wanted to show you what the experience of having chocolate cake is like, because you've never had chocolate cake, if I lined up some bowls on my table here and said, okay, here's flour, here's sugar, here's cocoa, here's a raw egg, here's baking powder, just dip your spoon into each one and then taste it. You'd say, boy, I do not see what the big deal is at all. That's the way it is with community. The ingredients on their own are only one thing, but together as a group, we can do things that none of us can do alone. Community has power. It has authority. It's able to do amazing things when we work together. Jesus spent time with all kinds of people, and he never excluded anybody. He sat with the people that were considered outsiders, and he befriended anybody that was interested. Whatever their race, whatever their religion, whatever their financial status was, whatever their age was. Even little children who a lot of people thought were just too young, they fit perfectly into the kingdom of Jesus. He brought them right up front. We could give them a hug. Jesus was radical in the way he treated people. We use the word radical usually to mean something bad, but it just means out of the ordinary. And it was not ordinary for anybody to pay any attention to children back then, or people from the country across the border who were our enemies. Jesus welcomed all of them. He hung around with unpopular people, the sick, the sinners, not to improve his political image, but because he cared about them. He genuinely loved everyone. Most of us think, I know God loves everybody. It's easy for him. He's God. But me, I'm shy. We have people here in our church who have told me this. I'm shy. It's not easy for me to hug somebody. Well, guess what? It's not easy for me to hug somebody either. Or at least it wasn't always easy. It's gotten a lot easier because of what I want to tell you here. God enables us to do what he expects of us. He doesn't just say, love people, and by the way, good luck with that. Go your way. No, God empowers us to do what we can't do naturally. It wasn't until I actually prayed, God, help me to love other people, to care about other people, because I did not. And God said, okay. And I'm not great at it. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but I am so much better at it than I was before I prayed that prayer. When people were just like cardboard cutouts to me. I didn't care to know any more about them. I just saw the surface and categorized them accordingly. God loves empowering us because then we're aware we can't do this by ourselves. And then we have to trust him completely. See, we know it isn't us. There have been times in my life when I thought it'd be great to be on a desert island all by myself. As long as I had electricity and air conditioning and the internet and an endless pantry of food, yeah, I could last a long time there. I've thought that. But I also know there have been times in my life when I have desperately needed contact with another human being, for someone to reach out and touch me, so somebody to give me a hug, for someone to give me an encouraging word. I have been starved for that at times in my life. Have you? I think most of us have. So we need contact with another person. If it's hard for you, ask God to help you. He will answer that prayer. And it doesn't happen all at once. A switch doesn't totally suddenly get flipped and all of a sudden you're, hi, everybody, come here and give me a big old hug. No, it's a gradual thing. It's a muscle that you must exercise to build up. So how do we help others? How do we encourage others? How do we honor and serve one another? There's a great example right here in our church. Most of you know Fred and Lynn Reclus. A couple of years ago, Lynn broke her hip. She was in the hospital a long time. And not long after she got out of the hospital, they had to move, excuse me. Oh, man. Spider web. Not long after she got out of the hospital, they finally decided it was time for them to move into an assisted living place. But while she was in the hospital, I began going to visit them as a pastor does. I can't say that hospital visitation was ever my favorite thing to do. It was always done with a sense of duty. And I remember the first time I went to see Fred and Lynn. Fred, as many of you know, can be a little bit of a curmudgeon, can be a little bit grumpy sometimes. And so what I did, I didn't sit in front of him and read Bible verses. I asked him what he'd like to do. I asked him about his hobbies. He showed me his artwork, his collections. He would say something funny about some old movie, and I would know the movie, and I would say a joke back to him, and he would just smile and laugh. And I would talk to Lynn and ask about people, and she would tell me old stories. And every time I went to see them, they may not have been in a good mood when I got there, but they were in a good mood when I left, because I had realized I can make contact with these people. We have some common ground. It may take a few minutes to discover what that common ground is, but when we find it, there is a true relationship there. It kills me right now that I can't go see Fred and Lynn every week or two. But I've talked to them on the phone several times. The experience is just the same. We make each other laugh. We tell each other we miss you. That's all we can do right now. But there are some ways I want to encourage you today that you can encourage others, that you can honor one another. 3 things I want to share with you. The first one is this: you need to be kind. Kindness is so rare in our world today. What does that mean, kindness? Well, it means doing something nice for someone, putting their needs on a level as high as yours, if not even higher. Kindness is so rare today that if you actually do it, people will think you're amazing because it's in such short supply. But it's easy to do something kind for other people. Let that car go ahead of you. Return that person's cart to the corral at the grocery store. Pay for the coffee of the car behind you in line at Starbucks. Just do acts of kindness. We need to counteract the ugliness in the world today, and the only way we can do that is to do good things, kind things in return. But the second thing I want to encourage you to do is to be careful. Now, by that I don't mean be caring, because that's kind of covered under the kindness thing. I mean, be careful of what you say and what you do. Pause before you say something that is going to do great harm to somebody. And folks, that's advice nobody in the world seems to be taking right now. Everybody is just saying whatever they want to off the top of their heads. And most of it is so hateful and misinformed and misdirected. And I can't believe that if they stopped for a few seconds and thought, is this going to do any good at all for anybody? Or is it just going to drive a bigger wedge between me and these other people? I can't believe that people would do that if they thought about it for just a few seconds. You need to remember, we all have the potential to draw people in or push them away. And most of it has a lot to do with what we say. So be careful what you say and what you do. And then finally, we need to always be connecting. When we were able to meet here on Sunday mornings for the last 3 years, we would spend time after the first hymn just saying hi to everybody. People would roam around, clog up the aisles, and we would make connections with other people. But you know what? I know for a fact that even after doing that for a year or two, there were people sitting on this side that could not tell you the names of people sitting on this side. Because see, we can't build community in just 3 minutes once a week. We've got to do something else outside of that. I love that part of the service. Many Sundays, that was probably the best part of the whole service, but it's not enough. That's not a very strong connection, just saying, what was your name again? You only know a tiny, tiny, tiny surface bit if you do that. Well, what do? Well, you say, hey, we'd like to get to know you. You want to have lunch after church? Or there's a movie a bunch of us are going to see. Would you like to go? Or hey, here's my email address. Would you stay in touch with me? Can I call you on the phone and we can just talk sometime? That's where community starts to build. I got to tell you, the Wednesday night Zoom chats that we have been doing for the past several months may be the most important thing we've done this year. And if you're not doing them, first, shame on you. And 2, get on board, because I promise you're going to enjoy them. They are fun. We laugh every week. But also over the weeks, I have learned what his nickname was as a kid. I have learned what job she held that I would have never expected. I've learned the most amazing place they have visited, and I've learned the only song that she can sing all the way through. I've learned people's goals and ambitions. I've heard some great stories, and you know what? Every person that does the Zoom chat, I know them better now than I did 6 months ago. And I never would have done that just on Sunday morning saying, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. You got to reach outside yourself to make a connection. Join us Wednesday night. I promise it will be enjoyable, and it will be educational, and it will help you build new connections, build your community. And that's what we all need right now, is community. You remember 25, maybe 30 years ago now, when virtually every rock star in the world got together to sing on one record. It was called We Are the World. And as they got to the recording studio, these people are the ones who are used to having everything done for them. And I think my audio was off for the last few minutes, wasn't it? Oh boy, sorry about that. The people who came together to record We Are the World, they're spoiled. They're used to being the ones who are pampered. But there was a sign hung at the door of the recording studio that night that said, check your egos at the door. And you know what? Everybody did. They all were accommodating. They all got along. Nobody was saying, oh, I'm better than you, or what are you doing here? They checked their egos at the door, and that's a really good sign. But here's the sign I'd like to hang on our front door. No drama. No drama. I would love to have a church that is drama-free. And that only comes when a true community is formed there, where people realize we're all different, but we're all in this family. And I'll accept you, and you accept me, and we will, with God's help, do amazing things together. One of the things I'm most proud of is that when I became pastor here 3.5 years ago, there was a lot of this going on. There weren't very many people, but everybody had opinions and everybody had agendas, and not everybody got along on the outside. Outwardly they did, verbally they did, but on the inside there was some bad stuff happening. I'm happy to say that over the past 3 years, that has mostly gone away. Our church council meeting last month, we Zoomed through it in less than an hour. That rarely happens. And at the end of it, everybody said, that was actually kind of fun. Wouldn't it be nice if church meetings were fun instead of drudgery, instead of opportunities for us to attack somebody? Let's concentrate on being a drama-free zone. There's another sign that most businesses have in their window that looks like this. Come in, we're open. I'd be fine with having that on our door too, as long as we realize it's not just about having the doors unlocked. It means we are open. There is room for you. We accept you. We never want to hang a closed sign on our door. We never want to say, oh, we got our group, sorry. Extra people would only spoil it. No. We want to be open to everyone. Beautiful story I read a couple of years ago. A preacher and his family decided to adopt a little 8-year-old girl. They knew it was not going to be easy because she had already been adopted once and then returned by her foster parents, her adopted parents, because she was just too hard to handle. She had behavioral issues. She lied. She took things. She hit people. She just would not conform to the rules of their house. And so they took her back and left her with the agency again. So this preacher and his family knew it was not going to be easy. But they learned some stuff about her previous experience, like when she was adopted, the family that adopted her, every year they would take a trip to Disney World, and they would not take this little girl. They would leave her with relatives while the rest of the family went to Disney World. Gee, you think that could have an effect on a kid's psyche? Yeah. And so the preacher said, first thing we got to do, we got to plan a trip to Disney World. And so they set a date and they began making arrangements for this trip. And he thought, she's gonna fall right in line. She's gonna keep all the rules because she knows the reward is coming. He said it was just the opposite. She acted out even more. She was ruder. She was less likable. She was angrier. And he sat her down and tried to talk to her and said, why are you doing this? And she said, I know you're not going to really take me to Disney World. I know it. He said, is this a family trip? She said, yeah. He said, are you part of our family? She said, yeah. He said, then you're going. You're going to be part of it. She didn't really believe it. Even on the plane, on the way to Florida, she was still acting out. They got into the hotel. Everybody got ready for bed. The next morning, they woke up early and they headed for the Magic Kingdom. And they spent a long day at Disney World. And folks, days can be very long at Disney World. And as they went through the park, they rode all the rides, they saw all the shows, they met all the princesses, they ate all the junk food. And that night, when they got back to the hotel, the little girl was just exhausted. And the preacher was tucking her in, and he said, well, tell me how you feel now. She said, Daddy, I finally got to go to Disney World. But it wasn't because I was good. It's because I'm yours. Folks, that's my story. Why am I in the family of God, in the kingdom of heaven? It's certainly not because I was good enough. It's because of who I belong to. I belong to Jesus, and that has brought me everything. It doesn't matter if you're good. It doesn't matter what your previous experience is. What matters is that you are here and you are part of our community now. And that is how love wins. I'll see you next week.